Redshift here, doing my part to shift perceptions out of the pink and into the red. I want to mention the stock to flow ratio of silver. I could be wrong, but I don't think a high stock to flow ratio needs to exist for silver to be a good investment. Some things like wheat, cotton, sugar, etc. are of the nature that you can produce more of them. And you can, with better technology, you can increase the amount of sugar, cotton, or wheat, or whatever that you can grow on the same acre of land. So you can produce more and more and more with the same amount of land. Now, I guess the same is true about silver and gold because with better technology you can get more and more out of the ground, but at the same time, land, you can produce wheat on the land for an almost infinite amount of time. Millions of years you could keep, farming that same land, growing crops on that land year after year after year. You know what I mean? Obviously, you have to prevent the land from getting depleted, so you got to rotate the crops and give it a fallow year and all that stuff. Just let it, replenish itself for a year where you grow nothing on it. You got to do that kind of stuff, sure. But, at the same time, you can just grow that stuff just for years, centuries, millions of years. You can just keep growing that stuff. But, gold and silver, there gets to be less and less and less in the ground the more you mine. So it's not the same thing at all. You know what I mean? Other things, like iron and lead and copper, you cannot produce more of, just like gold and silver. You can produce more of, if you can produce more of something, then the price of that thing will not be very high, because you're not actually producing more iron or lead or copper or gold or silver when you mine more. You're just depleting the bucket of how much is in the Earth's crust at a faster rate. But, you're still depleting the amount that's in the Earth, so you're eventually going to run out. You know what I mean? You're going to hit the top of that bell curve, and Blank P has showed data showing we're not anywhere near there yet, but we eventually will be, right? So we eventually, I don't know whether it's in 50 years or 100 years or 200 years, eventually we will reach the top, maybe longer, maybe 500 years from now. We will reach the top of that bell curve, and then we will, no matter how much effort we put into it, no matter how much money and time and effort, we will be getting less and less and less, especially of precious metals, out of the ground. If you can produce more of something, then the price of that thing will not be very high. Right? But if you cannot produce more of something, then the price of that thing will be very high, assuming that that thing is in high demand, like gold and silver, especially gold, and assuming that that thing is rare, like gold and silver, which is necessary if it's to be something that people use to save their wealth, over long periods of time, and which people need to be able to accrue. Sorry. And which people need to be able to accrue and hold in their personal possession so that it cannot be easily stolen by government, right? Like this is also a what I think is an important aspect of money. That copper. People say that copper is not money because you'd have to carry around hundreds of pounds of it to pay for something expensive, right? And that's impractical, so it's not money. Well, you got crypto now, but even with crypto, it's hard to deliver enough copper to where you could get all your copper holdings delivered. So unless you can at least temporarily, at some point, take possession of your, whatever it is, gold, silver, copper, whatever, then it's not really yours, is it? You can never really fully verify that it's not a fractional reserve system, even if it claims that it's not. It could actually be, right? So you really got to be able to hold your wealth in your hand, have it either in your personal possession, like, at your house, or buried in the ground somewhere nearby, or even far away nearby if it's like a totally accessible land and it's very desolate and nobody really owns the land or it's public land or whatever and nobody goes there, then you could bury it there where no one knows, and then you could be the only one that knows that it's there and then get it at any time. So yeah, but basically it has to be able to be hidden or be able to be held in your personal possession. So it can't easily be stolen by government. And that excludes less rare metals like copper and iron because they're too abundant, and thus they take up too much space to be practical for most people to use as a store of purchasing power. Copper and iron are not very rare, and so the price is not very high, despite the fact that you cannot produce more of them because there's only a limited amount in the ground, right? You can't produce more iron or copper, but there is a ton in the ground, and it's also not very compact in terms of wealth preservation. You can hold like $1 million of gold in a very small amount of space. You cannot hold $1 million in copper or iron or anything like that in a small amount of space. You know what I mean? So sure, there's a limited amount in the ground. You can't produce more of them, but since the amount is huge, it doesn't really matter that the amount in the ground is limited. There's more than enough for the current population of the world, more than enough copper and iron and stuff. And so the price of these things will remain low, making it a bad savings vehicle. But if something is a thing that you cannot produce more of it because of it being a metal instead of something that you can grow like wheat or sugar, and if that thing is also rare, like how silver is both impossible to create more of and is rare, I mean, technically you can create more gold and silver through nuclear processes, but I think those are like radioactive isotopes or something. So I think you're not able to use them, and you can't create much. So basically, it's impossible to create gold and silver, although technically it's not. So silver is basically impossible to create more of, and it's rare, and it's in demand. So I really don't think that it matters whether lots of people hoard it or not. Because like as long as, and even actually with anything really, if the price is just barely above the mining cost, if you buy it at that price, it can't do anything but go up over time with inflation. I mean, that goes for copper or iron or anything really. Although, since you can't take possession of it, you can't you can't create a scarcity of it and thereby force the government to stop manipulating the price. Although the floor of the price does prevent the government from manipulating the price any lower, but they could let the price oscillate and go higher, lower, and then so you'd only be, using that as a safe savings vehicle if you were buying it only when it's barely above the mining cost. In other words, only when it's on the dip, big dip. So, technically you could use other things as savings vehicles like copper and stuff like that, but considering, I guess they can't really drive the price below the mining cost for long, but if it's above the mining cost by any kind of significant amount, you should be wary of that. You know what I mean? But I guess the price could be said about, same thing could be said about gold and silver, and just as accurately, because if most people are not buying it, there's not a tremendous demand for it. If there's not a tremendous demand for it, then it's like it doesn't really have a real value that's really high. It just has a mining value. You know what I mean? And anything that goes above the mining value could be driven back down through the price manipulation on the COMEX and stuff of various kinds. Rickards talks about it in his book, The New Case for Gold, if you want to know more about the manipulation. Now, of course, the fact that people hoard it, like silver or gold, but especially silver, they hoard gold more, but like silver is more rare because it is a thing that is used in industrial processes way more than gold is, right? So the fact that people hoard it means there'll be artificial scarcity of that thing, and that will keep the price higher. But considering silver is rare and highly in demand for computers and thousands of other industrial applications, and much of the silver used is destroyed in those uses, and thus the supply of silver above ground and below ground is constantly decreasing. This means that even if people were to stop hoarding silver, silver would still be high in price, assuming we had a free market instead of the controlled market that we have now, where the governments keep the price of silver and gold suppressed so that the price does not reflect the fundamentals of precious metals. In fact, I think there would be more price volatility in silver if people did not hoard it, because then the price would probably be higher if there were no price manipulation. But the price would jerk up and down more as people saw it as a good investment or a bad investment due to it oscillating in price and people wanting to get in and out of the metal as a short-term trade in order to make a profit. The way that some people get in and out of rhodium in order to take advantage of the price swings in order to make money, or in and out of stocks in order to make a profit. In his video after his video gold allocation, where he talked about the same thing but with silver too, can't remember what it was called. Maybe silver and gold allocation, whatever. It was the video that he made after gold allocation. Anyway, in that video, Blank P showed that silver is also a better investment than various percentages of stocks and bonds making up most of your portfolio. It's not as good as gold. It's not as good as a gold and stocks mix, but silver and stock mix is better than a stock and bonds mix. If you instead saved in both silver and stocks, you would make both more money and also be less at risk than if you saved in bonds instead of silver and saved the rest of your money in stocks. Not all percentages were ideal. I think it was like 40 to 60% of your money in silver and the rest in stocks was the best position that was superior to holding stocks and bonds. With gold, it was more profitable to hold gold than to hold silver, and the ideal percentage of owning gold was 50 to 80% of your money in gold and 20 to 50% of your money in stocks. The advantage of saving in the form of silver instead of in bonds was less substantive than if you had instead saved in gold rather than bonds. But that doesn't mean that you should own both gold and stocks while owning no silver. It just means that you would be wise to own a significant amount of gold as well. Unfortunately, Belang P did not do a video showing which percentage of gold and silver would be best and what percentage should be in stocks in such an ideal silver-gold mix. Like, what's the best ratio? 30% stocks and 30% silver and 40% gold? 20% silver, 60% gold, and 20% stocks? 30% silver, 40% gold, and 30% stocks, 10% silver, 60% gold, and 30% stocks. Like, what's the ideal ratio? I asked him in a comment recently if he'd do a video about that. He said he'd think about it. So I don't know if he's ever going to do that video or not, but I think it would be a good video for him or someone like him to make. And again, like Belang P said in one of his videos, this whole thing saying that you should have like 50 to 80% of your money in gold and the rest in stocks is just what the data shows about how it was in the past, like he himself said. Which does not necessarily mean they'll be like that in the future. Maybe silver will prove to be a far better investment than gold over the next 50 to 100 years. No one knows. But if you want to use past data to make your determination of what is the best way to allocate your money, then I think that the smartest move would be to have both a lot of gold and a lot of silver, in my opinion. Like, because plus you just need diversification, you know what I mean? You can't just have all your money in one metal. You can obviously weight your allocation however you please. You could have, 70% of your precious metals in gold and 30% in silver. And then, the other rest of it in stocks. Not 70% of your money in gold, but 70% of your precious metals money in gold and 30% in silver, and then the rest in stocks. Or you could have, 70% of your precious metals in silver, precious metals money in silver, and 30% in gold. Or you could have 50-50. Or, you could have, 50% in silver and 50% in platinum, and the rest in stocks. Or you could have 50% in silver and 25% in gold and 25% in stocks, and then, of your precious metals, part of your portfolio, which should be, 40 to 80% of your portfolio, and then have the rest of it in stocks. You can do the allotment however you please between your precious metals. But having both some gold and some silver in your savings is a good idea, in my opinion. It's probably a good idea to have maybe 40% of your wealth in gold and 30% of your wealth in silver. That way you're in the middle of the range, which is ideal for gold, and then have the rest in stocks. That is in the middle of the range for like how much precious metals money you should have how much of your money you should have in precious metals if you had it all of your precious metals money in gold. You're in the 70% range if you have 40% of your money in gold and 30% in silver. Then you're in the 70% range, which is between that 50 and 80% range, right? So I think that's probably a decent range to have it in, especially since if you have 40% gold and 30% silver, you have more gold. So you're obviously leaning in the data-driven direction as well. Right now, this is not necessarily the moral choice. I think silver is a much more moral thing to buy than gold. But, as far as like the data-driven choice, yeah, buying more gold than silver is probably smarter. And buying more probably doesn't mean more ounces. It means more of your money, your dollars spent on gold than on silver, which would obviously, if you had a 40-30 ratio like that, a little more gold than silver, you would still have way more silver because silver is way, way cheaper, right? And a little correction here. I may have been saying it wrong for a while now in previous videos, so I should correct what I've said before, which is that it's not actually 40 to 60% of your money that you should have in gold according to the data. It's 50 to 80% of your money that you should have in gold. I rewatched that video by Belang P, and I was like, oh, it's 50 to 80%, huh? Maybe I was just remembering the silver thing that says it should be 40 to 60% of your money in precious metals. That was on the silver video. That was for silver. But for gold, you should have 50 to 80% of your money in gold and have the rest in stocks. That's what the data shows. If you want to see the data yourself, then watch Belang P's video, Gold Allocation. And then watch the next one too, because then it shows the same thing, but with gold and stocks and bonds and still silver. So it's like kind of like the same video, but with more information. And like I said, watch the video after that. If I remember correctly, assuming you're only going to own silver and stocks, no gold, then, the ideal amount of silver is something like 40 to 60% of your money in silver and the rest in stocks. But, safer would be to have both gold and silver and stocks. So having, 70% of your money in precious metals is probably an allocation that's in the sweet spot and would probably be best to have it in. And having it be more gold than silver seems to be the data-driven choice, like I said before, and thus perhaps the wisest choice. Hence me saying earlier that it's probably a good idea to have 40% of your wealth in gold and 30% in silver. Then you're in both gold and silver, and you don't have too much silver. You have more gold, but yet you do have a lot of silver. And when you add the gold and silver together, you have an allocation of 70% of your money in precious metals, the last 30 being in stocks, thus keeping you in what is probably a very safe position when you're probably in a much better position, where you're probably in a much better position than if you held your money in stocks and bonds. At least that's what the data shows, right? And some people may say, well, the Shiller PE ratio shows that the stock market is incredibly overvalued right now. Just it's only been more overvalued than this, I think, once or twice in the last 100 years. It's super overvalued right now, right? Meaning like the prices of stocks should come down if we were living in a sane world, right? But you also have to look at, so why would you buy stocks, right? Like that's insane, right? Well, the reason I think the rationale to buy stocks is, well, number one, it's a data-driven choice, which is perhaps a decent reason. Number two, it's a good choice because the elites are the ones who rule the world. The elites do hold a lot of their money they do hold a lot of their money in gold, but they do hold a lot of their money in stocks, and so they're not going to let the stocks go down a lot, or at least they're not going to let the stocks stay down forever. They're not going to let their stocks revalue at a much, much lower level, unless, of course, they've been, buying a ton of gold so that, the gold more than makes up for the loss of, their wealth when their stocks go down. That's possible, too. So maybe they won't care that much if they've been amassing a lot of gold, which a lot of rich people have been doing for several years now, if not decades. Like, they know the crash is coming. They're preparing by buying gold, But yeah, they're not going to want their stock holdings to go down, and not at least until they have a ton of gold, a lot of gold, So in one sense, yeah, they're not gonna want their stocks to go down. They're going to make the government do whatever it takes to keep their stock prices high because that's how they keep a lot of their money. But on the other hand, they know the crash is coming inevitably, and it has to happen, and the government can't stop it. Eventually, the government will just try to stop it, and it'll just make it worse. You know what I mean? So Mike Maloney talked about it in, I don't know, episode 6 or 7 or 8 of the Hidden Secrets of Money that you should watch, talking about how, they're going to print money, won't do anything to money velocity, and then eventually people have enough, they'll start spending, and then inflation will get out of control, So, in one sense, maybe you're safe putting your money in stocks just because the elites hold stocks and the elites are the ones in power. But on the other hand, they're buying gold too, so maybe they don't give a shit about their stocks all that much when they're ready for the crash to happen. Not that I think it's all engineered, they make the crash happen when they want, but at the same time, it's like they know that it's going to happen, and they know they probably can't really stop it, so they're just going to, at some point, totally throw up their hands and let it happen, So who knows? Like, it might be even better if you diversified even further. You could have 70% of your wealth in precious metals and 30% in stocks, but have half of the precious metals allotment made up of gold, a quarter of it of silver, and a quarter of it in platinum. Like, 35% of your wealth in gold, 17% in silver, and 17% in platinum. Right? Or you could diversify even more. Have 35% of your wealth in gold, 15% in silver, 10% in platinum, 5% in palladium, and 5% in rhodium. That way you could change the percentages of the precious metals that you hold without changing the percentage allotted to precious metals, right? So, so you're always keeping, 70% of your money in precious metals and 30% in stocks, but, periodically maybe moving out of platinum and into gold when platinum's price has risen, thus locking in profits without changing the balance of how much of your money is in stable precious metals, which I'll talk about more in another video. Then when you've had, 3/4 of that 70% in gold and the last quarter in silver, and it's been that way for a while, and the price of palladium has fallen again, and platinum is very cheap again. Did I say palladium? I meant to say platinum. The price of platinum has fallen again, and platinum is very cheap again, and maybe gold is overpriced at that time, or you think it's due for a dip at least. Then you could, sell a big chunk of your gold again and then buy back the platinum cheap, even though you sold it high, thus buying back more platinum than you sold. Amassing more precious metal for basically free. And then when platinum goes up again, you sell that again and buy gold again, but you play the silver to gold ratio. But you can do it with more than just silver. You can do it with gold and silver and platinum, palladium, and all kinds of stuff, Or you could, sell your silver, buy platinum, sell your silver, buy gold, or sell your gold or platinum and buy silver with it when silver's cheap, right? And then when silver's in a peak, or you think it is, then you sell that and then you buy gold or platinum, right? Although you only want to do this if silver has gone up much more than gold or platinum has gone up in percentage terms, such as if you can buy, a few ounces of silver with gold now due to silver's price having risen much more than gold's price, then that's a good time to sell silver and buy gold or platinum, right? Then when silver's price falls back down again, you can sell gold or platinum and buy silver again, and this time buy a lot more ounces of silver than you had before. If gold's price is $2,000 an ounce and silver is $20 an ounce, and silver goes up to $45 an ounce and gold only goes up to $2,100 an ounce, then gold has only gone up by 5%, but silver's gone up by more than 100%, right? The gold to silver rate, or silver to gold ratio, whatever it's called, will have dropped from 100, meaning that silver is $20 and gold is 2,000. You can buy 100 ounces, so that you can buy 100 ounces of silver with 1 ounce of gold, all the way down to 47, meaning you can only buy 47 ounces of silver with 1 ounce of gold, meaning it's a good time to sell silver and buy gold, So then you wait until after you buy gold with your silver, you wait until the price of silver drops back down again, and then you sell your gold and you buy silver again, So, this is how it works, and it oscillates, and you can just trade it back and forth, and get more and more ounces for free, basically, right? But, number one, you might think that this kind of thing is hard to time properly, and thus it's perhaps better to, instead of selling gold and silver, you might want to just instead buy whichever is the best deal, whichever is the most undervalued. If the gold-silver ratio has gone down to 60 or 50, then you should probably buy gold, because silver is not a great deal at that time, because silver's gone up in price. That's why you can buy fewer ounces of silver with 1 ounce of gold, right? And if the gold to silver ratio is very high, meaning that silver is really cheap, you can buy a lot of ounces of silver with 1 ounce of gold, such is the case as it is now. Well, then at that time, it's better to buy silver, because silver is at that time very undervalued. So you don't necessarily have to sell what you have already. You could just, buy whatever is most undervalued. When the silver to gold ratio is really high, like 100 or 90, you can buy silver. And then when it goes back down to like 80 or 70 or 60 or whatever you think is high, at least historically over the last 30 years or whatever, well, then you buy gold. So you don't even have to put any of your precious metals holdings at risk, so to speak, by selling a lot of one that you thought you'd be able to soon buy back, but then the ratio never changes and you're never able to buy it back again. You don't have to put your savings at risk like that. You could just buy whichever's cheapest, and it's kind of a similar thing. It's not as profitable, but you're not putting what you have at risk. So of course you need to take premiums into consideration when doing this kind of thing as well, such as how it's the case right now where the spot price of silver is less than $16, but you can't buy it for anywhere near that price. The price for physical silver is much higher than that now. Let's say that you can't get silver for anything less than $18 or $19 an ounce, and that's if you're paying a small premium. But if you're paying a more regular premium, such as if you're buying 1 ounce rounds, or even worse, 1 ounce silver eagles, then this means that you're going to pay quite a bit more per ounce, especially with eagles, where you might be paying $21 to $22 an ounce for silver eagles. This whole thing is also much more profitable, economical, if you own big bars of silver or gold. That's another thing. That's the second thing. If you own big bars, then you can buy them for not much above spot, and then you can resell them for not much less than you bought them for. Then this means you can much more easily and safely and quickly play the gold to silver ratio, or silver to gold ratio, whatever it's called. Because every time you swap gold for silver or vice versa, you are not losing much to premiums because you're dealing in bigger bars and you're paying smaller premiums. But of course, owning big bars is more expensive, and thus this kind of thing is more viable for people who are either rich or pool their money together, right? Or at least they could pool their money to buy the initial bars until they all have eventually 1 bar. Like 5 people all putting their money together to buy a big bar of silver, like 100 or 1,000 ounce bar, every month, and then eventually after 5 months, there's 5 bars, and then they could just split up all the bars, and then each person gets a bar, assuming they were contributing the same amount of money to the pool every month. So you can buy bars quicker that way, and especially if you're buying gold or something and the price is going up quickly and you want to get as much as you can as quick as you can at as low of a premium as you can, well then buying with other people like that is an advantage, because you can pay a lower premium, and then when you have enough bars you just split them up evenly and everybody gets an identical bar, and nobody's getting ripped off. Everybody's getting exactly what they contributed, but while having paid a smaller premium, you see. So this is, and then after they split up all the bars, like they bought 5 bars over 5 months, and there's 5 people in the group, then at that point they can split up the group if they want to. They don't have to keep doing that. They can just do it until they each have a bar, and then they can break up the little group that pools this money together, or they can keep doing it if they want. But they're not locked together for all that long. You know what I mean? They just pool their money to buy, and then, a big bar of silver or gold is jointly owned until the group has been able to buy enough bars to where they can be distributed and everyone gets one. So you don't have to keep your money permanently pooled with everybody. And if you all want to stop doing the money pooling thing because you can't all agree on which precious metal to buy at what time, then when you've all bought enough bars for everyone to have one, then you can all stop pooling your money, because you'd be doing so before buying any more big bars that have to be jointly owned. But I think Belang P said that his method is better than other methods, such as playing the gold to silver ratio. If you want to know about his method, then watch his videos. I can't remember which of his videos was the one in which he talked about his method, but his method has to do with calculating how much you need to retire, I think in dollar terms. Then deciding how much you have to buy, how much money you have to save each month to have enough at retirement, and at what year you want to retire, and how much money you'll need to have, and all that, and how much you need to save each month to make that happen, right? And then, buy precious metals based on, I think, which was cheapest or something, most undervalued or something like that. It was more complicated than that, though. You adjust it, and I think you save the money if it's overpriced or whatever, and then you spend more the next month, that month saved money and the next, month's money, and then you buy whichever is cheapest or whatever, I can't remember. You can watch this video, but it's interesting, right? But it basically involves buying fewer ounces when precious metals are more expensive and buying more ounces when they're cheaper, and making sure you spend every month or every few months, you've spent as much as you should be so that you eventually end up with enough to retire, right? So you don't, if you can't buy any precious metals this month because they're all overpriced this month, well, then you don't waste that money on something else, like going to the movie theater or something. You spend that money the next month. You save that money, and then you buy it the next month. Buy the precious metals the next month when they've gone down in value. You know what I mean? But there's no reason you can't both pool your money with other people and use this strategy that Belang P uses. At least in part, especially if all of you, make less money than someone like Belang P does, because I'm sure he makes hundreds of thousands a year. Because, else he wouldn't be a gold buyer. And number two, he's got a PhD in chemical engineering, so I'm sure he makes really good money. So not everybody can make that money. So not everybody can buy big bars of stuff, especially gold. So pooling your money with other people also makes it so you can save even more money. And then when the group has enough bars of each metal to where everyone can get one, then all the bars are given out and everyone has their fair share, like I said before. Assuming everyone contributed the same amount of money to the pool each month, like I said before, which would be a requirement to keep things simple. And thus you'd only want to do a pool like this with people who make roughly the same amount of money each year as you do, or are willing to just, put only the same amount of money into the pool as you do, right? Of course, by buying multiple metals, it would increase the time that it would take before there would be enough bars of all the metal to give out to everyone, meaning that the group would have to stay the course for a lot longer period of time before they can disband, right? If you are just going to do it for silver, right? You want to pool your money so you can buy, 1,000-ounce bars of silver for, 20,000 per bar, because a 1,000-ounce bar, it's about $20 per ounce. So it's, close to $20,000 ounce. Although I can't remember what they are now with 1,000-ounce bars. I think you can't even find very many of them now. But I think they're about 20,000. A 1,000-ounce bar is these days. But let's say it's about 20,000, right? If you want to buy those every month or every other month by pooling your money with other guys, well, then you could, in just 5 months, or if you bought one, let's say you buy one once every month, right? Each of the 5 of you can contribute 4,000 every month, so that you can all buy a 1,000-ounce bar every month, right? Well, then that would just mean 5 months before 5 bars have been bought, 5,000-ounce bars, and then you all, 5 bars of each 1,000 ounces, and then you dole them out among all of you, and you each get one, and then that's the end of it. You know what I mean? You could do that, but like I was saying, if you do it with multiple metals, you all pool your money, 4,000 each month or whatever, and then you're like, okay, which metal is cheapest? And you're all like, okay, we all think that platinum's cheapest, so we're going to buy a platinum bar this year. This month. And then the next month you're like, oh, platinum's price has gone up, and silver's price has gone down. We should buy a silver bar this month. So then the next month they buy a silver bar, and then they just keep doing that month after month. Well, then think about it. Like, some months is going to be gold, which they want to buy. Some months is going to be platinum. Some months is going to be silver. So, assuming they were buying those at an even rate, it would take, 15 months before they had enough of every bar. And that's if they're only buying those three metals. If they're buying, palladium and rhodium and other things, it would take even longer. You see what I mean? So, like, the group would have to stay together longer if they were buying more than one metal, right? If they were just buying whichever was cheapest that month, they'd have to, if it was a 5-person group and they were buying whichever of the big three metals were cheapest, platinum, gold, or silver, then this would mean that it would be a situation where it would take way longer. It would take over a year before they'd be able to disband, maybe longer, right? Because maybe some months they'd have to keep buying silver, buying silver, buying silver, and then after 6 months they finally get to start buying gold or platinum again. So then it takes way longer because, the price of gold or platinum never go down, so they just have to keep buying silver. So then they can, maybe disband the group by, like, getting even amount of silver bars and then hand those out, but maybe they have 1 bar of platinum and 1 bar of gold, and you can't break that bar up. So you'd have to buy more or sell that bar and then, divide the cash or whatever. Or, swap that bar maybe for some other precious metal. Like if the silver to gold ratio changes, you could maybe swap out that bar of gold or platinum for silver. And then it would be a situation of, like, at that point, you could, hand out the little silver bars, which you got for the 1 big bar of gold, or maybe it's a 10-ounce bar of gold or something. And then you buy silver with that, and then you split up the silver evenly. You could do that. Right, but it would take a lot longer probably if you're trying to buy whichever metal is cheapest, you in the group that you're part of, right? So yeah, that was the downside. You have to realize that, like, everything is yin and yang, right? Like, everything is an upside and a downside. Everything. There's nothing that doesn't have a downside along with its upside. You know what I mean? And so that's the downside of investing more intelligently by doing so in a pool and doing so in this particular way. You buy the particular metal, which happens to be the cheapest that month, and that means that it's going to take a much longer period of time before you have enough bars to divide evenly. Because, you'll have 2 bars of silver, 1 bar of gold, 1 bar of platinum, and then it'll take much longer because in that same time you could have bought, 5 or more bars of silver and then divided those 5 1,000-ounce bars of silver between all 5 members of the group and then disbanded the group. But, because you're doing it in a more cost-effective way by only buying the metal which is cheapest that month, it takes way longer before you have 5 bars of each of the metals. And it even takes longer to get just 5 bars of even just one metal. Right, like, it takes a while to get even just 5 bars of one metal. So if you're doing it with 3 metals, it's going to take even longer, right, before the group can disband, like I said before. But if you're only saving in 1 metal and had already bought more than the same number of bars as there are members of the group, like, you had a 5-person group and the group has bought like 6 large 1,000-ounce bars of silver. And then the group starts to have a conflict about what we should be buying now or whatever. And so the group's like, okay, let's disband. We just can't agree, right? So then you could split up those 5 bars evenly, and then the one that's a remainder, you could, sell that one for cash and then divide the cash, or you could sell it for another precious metal like silver and then divide the silver evenly because you buy smaller pieces. You sell or like I said, like 1,000-ounce bar of silver, but if it was like, 6 large 10-ounce bars of gold or something, I'm not large, but that's pretty big. It's pretty expensive, right? That'd be like, what, $17,000, right, for a 100-ounce bar of gold, wouldn't it? Yeah, I think. Whatever it'd be expensive, like, whatever it is, it's no, yeah, 10-ounce bar of gold, yeah, 17,000. Yeah, it'd be about $17,000 for a 10-ounce bar of gold. So, if you had like 6 10-ounce bars of gold, you could divide the 5, and then the 6th one you could sell, and then either split up the cash, or you could sell it for silver, or trade it for silver, and then, a bunch of, like, 1-ounce or 10-ounce or 100-ounce bars, and then you could divide those evenly among everybody, so you could do that. Let's see here, yada, 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 yada. All right, like, it's best if you don't stop pooling your money before you at least have 1 large bar for each member of the group, right? Because why were you doing it in the first place then, right? And can't give some people in the group silver bars and some people in the group smaller gold or platinum bars, because what if the price of silver, like, what if you decide, oh, we're not gonna split up the precious metals evenly, we'll just decide the dollar price of whatever it is. Like, right, like, let's say the group's like, okay, we're gonna make this group of 5 guys and we're gonna buy precious metals, whichever's cheapest, and then so they're doing that for like 8 months. And then they start not being able to agree about which is the lowest price because, Depends on how you measure it or whatever, right? Or where you think the price is going. One guy's using technical analysis, one guy's going by, the amount that's in the ground, and another guy's going by something else. Like they all have different opinions on where the prices of different precious metals are going, right? Based on different, data or whatever, different indicators. So then it's a situation of like, maybe the group just comes to a total impasse and they can't decide what to buy anymore when they've been doing it for like 8 months. And let's say they have like, 3 big bars of silver, a couple bars of gold, and, maybe, a couple bars of platinum and a palladium bar or something, right? Like they have all these different metals. Like, how do you divide that evenly? You know what I mean? Well, you can't just be like, okay, what's the dollar price of each of them? And we'll just give everybody the amount of that precious metal that they want. That's the same dollar price as we give to everybody else. Even if you could divide it that way, that evenly and that nicely, it's not really necessarily fair because one could be overvalued at that time and another could be undervalued at that time. And so, you divide them all evenly, and then, a month or 5 months later, the price radically changes of one of them, and now one guy's got this stuff that's worth way more, the other guy's got his stuff that's worth way less, and everybody's like, one guy's happy and the other guy's like really bitter about it, right? Like, you don't want that, right? You know what I mean? You want everybody to get the same amount and having paid the same amount for that same metal. Everybody should get the same metal and everybody gets the same, having paid in the same amount and everything. You want it to be as fair as possible to where there can not possibly be any debate about, whether it was fair or not. You know what I mean? Because that's how bad things start if, you get into this, moral gray area or whatever. You want there to be zero debate about whether it was fair. So you want to make it the simplest, most undebatably fair way possible. You leave it up to people's choice. One of them gets screwed over, and maybe it was his fault, maybe it wasn't, but now he's resentful. And you don't want that. That's not good. Again, it's a trade-off, right? If you let people take the metal they want, you can disband the group quicker. That's the advantage. But the disadvantage is that some people are going to get metals which later are seen to have been in a dip at the time. And other people will get metals that are seen to later to have been in a peak at that time. So theirs went down, and then resentment was created by some people profiting and some people losing, right? Far better to just have the group only disband after there are enough bars of one metal to give everybody 1 bar of the same metal, or more than 1 bar each of the same metal, or give them 1 bar of each of multiple metals or whatever, but so that everybody gets the same amount of bars of the same stuff and the same size bars and everything, and everybody paid in the same amount every month that the group was together, and so when it disbands, everything's perfectly fair, and any leftover bars are either sold or traded for other metals and then evenly divided for a cheaper metal like silver, right? So that's how that should go. Let's see here. Yada 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 yada. I said the group could give everyone in the group a bar of gold if they were like, of course you could partially disband the group, such as if the group had 5 people and has 5 large 100-ounce bars of gold and 4 large 1,000-ounce bars of silver. The group could give everyone in the group a bar of gold, thus evenly dividing the gold with no remainder. And then the group could either sell the silver bars and divide the cash among the group members, or the group could keep saving in silver until there are enough silver bars for everyone to get one, and then divide all the silver evenly with no remainder, and then permanently disband the group. Or the group could semi-disband at that point, such as if the silver price goes up significantly and most of the group members don't think it's wise to buy silver anymore, they could keep those silver bars jointly owned and then wait for the price to go back down again, not contributing any money to the pool in the meantime. Sort of semi-disband it, make it go into sort of semi-retirement, the group. And then when the price goes back down again, then they start saving money again and buying every month again. They sort of bring the group back together again after silver's price goes back down again, right? And then when they finally have enough bars, then they can divide them all evenly and then permanently disband the group completely. Or the group could divide all the gold bars and then keep saving in silver until they have that last silver bar, so that they can then divide all the silver evenly and then disband the group. But they could keep saving up money for that last silver bar at a much slower rate than they were all saving before, right? Like maybe they were all saving $1,000 a month before for a group total of 5,000. Well, since they're wanting to disband the group, they could start only saving $200 a month each, for a total of $1,000 a month instead of $5,000. And then it would take longer to buy that last silver bar so that they could finish disbanding the group. Like if the group had 4 silver bars and there were 5 people in the group and they needed to buy a last one, but they don't really want to contribute a ton of money to the group anymore, well, they just contribute a little bit each month so it doesn't really hurt. And then when they finally have enough, they buy that last bar of silver and then they split up all the bars and then everybody gets, what was fair for them to get, which is what they deserve. Everybody gets the same amount, right? But they'd also be keeping more of their money in their pocket each month so that they can do whatever they want with the rest of their money. Buy other precious metals that they want to buy, none of the other guys want to buy, or play the stock market, or pay for karate or Mandarin lessons for their kids, or whatever. That way they're getting to do what they want to do in the meantime, while still slowly saving up for that last bar, so that they can all divide all the bars of silver and then finish disbanding the group, so that everyone has all the precious metals that the group ever saved. There's no bars of precious metals that have not yet been divided evenly, that have not been divided among the group members, right? Like, you want it to be such that it's a situation where you are not stuck in this group and with these assets that you're not able to make use of, right? Like if you buy a property with some friends or with, family members or whatever, maybe they don't want to sell and you want to sell and they don't have the money to buy you out. So, you're kind of stuck, like, you want to sell and they don't, or you want to keep it and they want to sell and you don't have the money to buy them out. You know what I mean? So it's like you really don't want to get stuck with other people like that. But this is something that, like, I think a group could do without getting stuck very quickly. And if they discussed it all beforehand, then I think it'd be pretty easy to make sure that they all understood what they were getting into and, when they could disband at the soonest and, how everything's going to be divided and all that, right? Like, you make all this stuff clear beforehand, then it's not going to be a problem, you know what I mean? I think this is about all I had to say in this video. This has been Redshift. I hope someone got something out of this video. Peace.